All right, so welcome everyone to our Q4 panel event. My name is Julie Surface, and along with my fellow officer Jim Thompson, we have a great discussion planned for you tonight. On behalf of the entire HREG team, we just want to start by saying thank you for joining us, as we know that in this world of COVID, you all have a lot of virtual content to choose from. We originally wanted to have this panel in conjunction with a virtual career fair that was pegged for October, but given the situation that many companies are still in from a hiring perspective, we decided that in order to make it a valuable event, we needed to postpone it. So the new date for that career fair is now April 17th, 2021. You can make note of that. It is great to see a lot of new names on the line tonight. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Houston Renewable Energy Group, we are a nonprofit organization founded back in 1999 with a mission to empower all people to adopt renewable energy through education and community engagement. We typically meet once a month, every third Tuesday of the month, which we are still doing now over Zoom. And you can head to our website listed here, houstonrenewableenergy.org. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and or Facebook. And one final note is that we are recording this event tonight, so a YouTube link will be available on our website afterwards. The way tonight will work is that we will hear an introduction from each panelist detailing their career journey, and then we will move into an open question and answer format and discussion. Therefore, please be thinking of any questions you may have either for a particular panelist or all of the panelists to answer. And the way to submit your questions tonight will be to Jim. So Jim has renamed himself to Questions. So if you chat questions to Jim Thompson, he will be our question facilitator tonight. So please send them privately to him. All right, so without further ado, we can get started, and we will first hear from our panelist, Madison Wright, who I also must put a plug in, is on our Houston Renewable Energy officer board and is helping us a lot with our career fair efforts. So thank you in advance for that, Madison. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Madison. I think it'd probably work best if I just kind of give you a rundown of the last 5 years of my life. It might make it all make a little bit more sense. So I grew up kind of near Houston, Texas, went to high school, Clear Creek, went to college at Texas State University. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do when I went to college, so, but I've always been really passionate about the planet, and so my dad kind of helped steer me towards environmental engineering technology. That ended up being a great major for me, was in some really cool programs related to kind of like sustainability and recycling, and then I was involved with a Spark Scholars program where it was a STEM learning community, and that definitely helped fuel the, I guess, passion for renewable energy. After college, I moved to Palma de Mallorca, which is an island in Spain, to teach English. So completely different, had nothing to do with renewable energy, but I knew that I wanted to do some traveling and see the world. And it was actually in Spain that I really found my love for renewable energy. I was house sitting for this vegan Airbnb type ordeal, and they had solar panels on the roof, but the real old school ones where you had to crank a pulley like midway through the day to turn the solar panel. They were just completely off the grid, self-sustainable, and I thought, wow, this is so easy. How come everyone's not doing this? And then through a lot of traveling in Europe too, I just saw, like, you know, really cool remote islands in Greece, a ton of windmills, or you drive through France and there's just like fields of solar panels. So it was really cool. I decided to move back home like about a year ago, and really start on my career journey, I guess you could say. And I thought it would be a lot easier, but that definitely turned out not to be the case. And I can kind of go into the resources I utilized, because it took me 7 months to find my dream job, but it's not to say that I didn't have other offers during that period. I really wanted to hold out until I got in the renewable energy industry. So I guess some of the big ones for me, right when I moved home, the first thing I did was I needed to fix up my resume. So if you're a recent graduate, I know a lot of schools, they have alumni programs that help with college writing and fixing up your resumes. So I did that. I also went to a library where they did it for free for me, so that was cool. After that, I decided to kind of create online job search boards. So Indeed, ZipRecruiter, what else? There's a few more. Yeah, I kind of made a profile on there, and you kind of treat it like a LinkedIn. So I don't know if any of you have LinkedIn. I'm sure actually all of you do. But you kind of just want to keep it updated, make it really stand out about you, so that if recruiters are going on, they do see, that you've taken the time to fill everything out. So I did that, but I think one of the biggest things for me was getting involved in the industry. One of the first things I did when I moved home was I went to a climate change protest. One of the ones, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Fridays for Future, but it was back like in September, where everyone or every country, they were doing some sort of climate change protest. And I actually heard a lady giving a speech. Her name's Vanessa Tutos. She works at EDP Renewables. Ran up to her in the rain, got her business card, and I was like, can I please talk to you about renewable energy just over coffee? She's like, yeah, of course. She introduced me to HREG, which is the organization that we are at right now. And through them, I started volunteering, started working on this renewable energy and sustainability career fair. And ultimately, it led to my contacts at EDP Renewables and helped me get an interview. So I think definitely networking, volunteering with organizations that are somewhat in the same category as what you're trying to work for, and all the online platforms are my 3 keys for finally finding your job in the renewable energy industry. Yeah, with that, I don't want to talk too much. I know we only have like 5 to 10 minutes, but I can pass it over to whoever is next.
Great, thank you, Madison. All right, next we will go to Stephen Gregson.
All right. My name is Stephen Gregson. I'm currently at EDP with Madison. I'll cover my background in a second, but been there since January, where I'm the Associate Director of Operations, and I'll explain that in a minute. But after getting my MBA, I started with in Home Depot, really in their logistics and supply chain. So their warehousing, million square foot facilities, kind of starting off and running a shift, and then kind of work my way up to the assistant general manager, overseeing multiple shifts and things like that, larger operations, mechanized facilities, and things like that. And that's kind of how I was able to transition. Did that for almost 10 years and was able to transition over to IBM. As a consultant, Home Depot used IBM to kind of help get a concept that they had in their head to get it kind of to fruition. Thought that was very interesting, and it kind of intrigued me, and so was part of the transition team that developed this new platform, if you will, and then left that to one, move back to Texas, which I'm kind of originally from, but 2, also to get into a career in consulting, and did that for 2 years and loved it. With a young family and young kids, did not pose well because I was traveling essentially 100% of the time, Monday through Friday every week. And so it was great while it lasted, but was looking for something a little bit more, I thought at the time was stable. My dad worked for Exxon for 37 years and thought, hey, you know what, let's get into oil and gas. You know, what can be better from living in Houston type thing. So I started looking, searching. I was able to get a job with Halliburton as a material controls manager, essentially running their warehousing logistics for their manufacturing facility at their corporate office off of Beltway and did that for about 9 months, and then an opportunity arrived in manufacturing. And that's kind of where I ended up as far as the business unit manager running all of the manufacturing facility there at their North Belt facility. All different kind of downhole tools, didn't have any experience. And so I learned a lot around continuous improvement, and a lot of different other things, engineering and things that really wasn't used to. So definitely out of my comfort zone. But then through the ups and downs of the oil and gas industry, went through 3 major layoffs, and just at one point in time just said, you know, I've had enough. We hired up, we would let people go, hire back up, let people go, hire back up, and just kind of a yo-yo effect. And so I started looking probably about a year ago, and not really hard, because I had a job and liked what I did and loved what I did. But and finally, ironically, it was during one of the floods that we had in Houston, a lot of rain, and the campus actually flooded. But I found EDP through LinkedIn and applied. I didn't have any contacts. I do know people that work for Halliburton that did transpire over to EDP. And then was able to land the job for the associate director of operations. And so what I do today essentially is I manage the Eastern Division. So EDP is a owner operator that manages wind farms and also solar farms. We have a Western, Central, and Eastern Division. So my region is pretty much from Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, New York, and then Canada are the ones that I have, which is about 19 sites. We produce about 5 gigawatts of power to the sites that I manage. And really the similar between the two kind of, I guess, different industries is really around, we did repair and maintenance as well as building new tools. And as the market wasn't doing too well, we did a lot more repair and maintenance of downhole tools. And so the transition to doing maintenance on a turbine, while they're 2 different entities, they're essentially the same as far as resources, parts, material, planning, and things like that. And so the transition was very seamless, kind of for me. And so I've been doing that for I started in January, so almost, I guess, 10 months now, and I've been loving every day from there. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now we will transition to Paige.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Bauer, and I work for Pattern Energy. I work in supply chain. I'm a sourcing lead, and I am specifically in operations. So we have a development division of our company as well, but I work specifically in the operations portion of the business. So my background is actually, I went to Oklahoma State. I'm a manufacturing engineer. Got my first job out of school, essentially going to a school in Oklahoma. All you hear about is oil and gas. That's what you're recruited for. When there's events at the college, it's all oil and gas companies. Didn't really have any view into the renewable energy space at all. So got a job in oil and gas right out of school. Worked as a manufacturing engineer for several years. Enjoyed it, but didn't really think that it was probably the right career path for me. And so I was working for a pump manufacturing plant for oil field services company, and found an opportunity here in Houston that kind of was a good transitional role in between what I was currently doing and what my skill set was at that company, which was manufacturing pumps, and into a supply chain and sourcing role that was working on rotating equipment, but sourcing it instead of trying to manufacture it. So that was kind of the first shift that I had in my career, and was able to kind of use my transferable skills to get into a position that I was more comfortable with and felt like was a better career path for myself. But I was still in the oil and gas industry, and similar to Stephen, had been through the ups and downs of the industry, several rounds of layoffs, lots of instability. But really oil and gas was all I knew. And when I decided that I wanted to make a career change, I'll be honest and say that renewables, I had never I had no information about renewables. So I did a ton of research, looked into it a lot, and was actually reached out to by a renewable energy company, Pattern, to try and fill this role. I had worked with someone who had transitioned from oil and gas into renewables, and they felt like that I had good skills that could transfer over and be of some assistance. So that's kind of how I ended up in renewables. It wasn't I'm passionate about the environment, but it wasn't ever a path for me until I actually took more control and reached out to my network and really made the conscious decision to get out of oil and gas. So that's me.
Great, thank you. And then we will throw the ball to you, Gage.
Okay, so my experience is going to be a little bit different than everybody else's, but kind of along the same lines where I'm a sales guy. So my career path took a little bit of a turn in February of this year. So previous experience was software sales. Got a job. I unfortunately skipped the college route and went straight to work. Started at the bottom of a company, worked my way up. Company went public. Everything was great. And then I turned from Gage Mueller to 042302. So I was a number instead of an employee at a large company. Got laid off from there, went to work for another software company. That wasn't really the avenue that I wanted to go down, but nothing really pays like software pays. So, you know, you kind of follow the money when you're young and or looking at what you want your future to look like. So about, like I said, in February, it's crazy because I tell the story. I got laid off in February and it was the best day of my life. People look at me like I'm crazy when I say that, but I actually tried to get fired for the last 2 years from my job because I just wasn't really happy there. So in February, when they laid me off, I was thinking, okay, well, now I can look around and see what it is that I want to do versus what I have to do. And so as you can see, my virtual background behind me, that's actually my house. I put solar on my house in December of 2017. The best decision of my life. One of the greatest experiences that I've kind of lived through as being a homeowner myself. Loved it so much that my wife and I are building a new house and we're putting solar on the new house. I told the builder there were a couple things that were non-negotiable, and solar was one of them. So, you know, the front of my house is solar. My wife doesn't really like it so much because that's what you see when you drive up in front of my house is 43 solar panels. But reality is when the sales guy came and talked to me about it, and he threw the numbers out at me and did some math, we saved about $86,000 by putting solar on our roof versus paying the solar company. So when my wife said she hates the way it looks, I looked at her and I said, write me a check for $86,000 and the conversation is over. As you can see, I didn't get my check. But all I did was talk about it. The company that I went with had won a contract with the Solarize Houston group. And so they basically did all the negotiating for us. And when they met with me, one of the things that they said is, we pay $1,000 for referrals. So not that any of you guys really know me besides Jim, but I'm a very money motivated guy. But if I believe in something, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. And if I don't believe in it and you do me wrong, that's an avenue you don't want to go down. I do my best to bury you if you do me wrong. And if you do me wrong and you want to do me right, then we're going to have a great conversation as long as you put your money where your mouth is. So in the renewable space, right, I literally jumped all in. I talked about it constantly. My wife hated it because anytime somebody would post something about solar, I would be the guy commenting on it. Therefore, I became like the solar guy within a 10, 15-mile radius of our house because I put it on. I learned everything that I possibly could, the benefits of it, how it works, you know, the downside, the upside, all of the good, the bad, the ugly. And it just made sense for me to take a job here, because if I made $8,000 in this referral program, I can only imagine how much money the sales guy made. So at that point, I'm doing his job anyway, so I might as well just, you know, take the leap and work here. So far it's been great. I love every minute of it. I do get told no a lot more than I get told yes, but I do firmly believe that the renewable space is the way that the world is basically going. Hence by Stephen and Paige coming from oil and gas now to renewables. The renewable space is growing at an unbelievably rapid pace. Just from our perspective, the company that I'm with now, we've grown since I've been here since February. I think we've hired over 500 people. So if you're looking to get into the renewable space, there are jobs out there. And, you know, I firmly believe that a lot of those oil and gas people are making that transition over to renewables, because it's, you know, reality is it's the way of the future. You know, there's going to be still oil and gas there, but, you know, from my standpoint, you know, I've absolutely loved it. I encourage anybody. I talk about it constantly when I meet with homeowners and they say, yeah, well, I got laid off. Oh, what'd you do? Oh, I was in oil and gas. You ever thought about working in renewables? Because we're hiring. So it's one of those avenues and industries that you're getting in at the ground level. And that's what I like to tell people is when you're looking in this space, it's almost like buying Apple at $1. And you're getting in early enough to where you can make a career out of it versus bouncing around from job to job to job. For me personally, like I said, the reason why we went solar was to screw the electric company. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, I'm going to call a spade a spade. But in the grand scheme of things, I personally have not paid an electric bill since December of 2017. As a matter of fact, not only did I fire the electric company, but I made them work for me. So I've got a negative $72.72 electric bill currently with Reliant. So it has all around kind of benefited me in every which way, shape, or form. And so at that, I'll stop talking and I'll, you know, let Julie take over, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Julie, well, let me jump in because we have a bunch of questions. And
Okay, one other thing, actually, Jim, before I pass it to you. We have a last minute addition. Also, Brian Chen would like to say a few words. He is actually a past HREG president and brings a recruiter view to the renewable space. So Brian, I'll let you speak for a few minutes and then we will go into our questions. And I'm glad that we have a lot.
Julie, actually, Gage, you're not the only sales guy here. So am I. Put that out there. So like Julie said, I won't go through my whole career background, but I did work in recruitment, specifically for a pure play renewable recruitment company for about 2.5 years. The bulk of my job there was to help not only people in renewables find jobs, but also people transitioning outside of that. You know, I guess you can kind of sit some questions I can answer them here or there. I just wanted to kind of share a few pieces after I get through my intro of what I learned from that. Since recruitment, I worked for a civil engineering survey firm focusing on renewables. So I still service those relationships that I have. And currently now I am the business development officer for Thomas Title, which specifically I work in the energy services group. So we cover a lot of wind and solar and energy storage projects across the US. At my time at Taylor Hopkinson, like I said, that's where I kind of ran into HREG and, you know, Rachel and Julie and a few other you guys, familiar faces and names. I work closely with development companies, EPCs, and asset and operations managers. Actually, some of you guys who are on this call, I've worked for, you were my clients. But yeah, so like within that, if you're looking at like what Steven said is his transferable skills from oil and gas, or Paige as well, those are key to kind of highlight. And I don't know if you guys were talking about the in-depth of what you went through resumes, but we can talk about those as well. Additionally, I feel like networking groups like this as well, or LinkedIn groups, benefit a lot in connecting. And then also kind of going through and market yourself. So if you're going out there as well, present yourself within those groups, post relatable articles, use hashtags to go from there, and then connect with professionals in the industry that you want to go into. Those are all huge keys. And then additionally, find a recruitment company or direct, if you can find a representative within the organization to talk to, that are market specialists. There are several renewable recruitment companies that's all they do is renewables that can help guide you through that process as well. And along with that, I don't know if we're sharing contact information, but I'll drop mine. I don't charge anything to review resumes or to look at them or kind of give you pro tips or not. But definitely can help you guys out on that space. And if you're a veteran as well, I work for Mentory. I'm a mentor for them. They're a veteran organization that we help with transitioning soldiers and veterans find roles. I specifically work on the energy side for them.
Great, thank you, Brian. Yeah, that's a good add. So if any of the panelists do want to share an email or contact information, please feel free to do so in the chat. All right, Jim, sorry. Now on to,
Oh, no,
on to the question.
that's great. Thank you. A big thank you to all the panelists for talking about themselves and their career paths so far. There are a number of questions in chat. Some were sent to the group and some were sent direct to me. I'm not sure where to start because these are great questions. Let me go chronologically. The first one that came in, very first question came in from Chuck. Is there a big salary and benefit difference between Houston oil and gas jobs and renewable jobs? That's an on-point question. How do panelists see differences in compensation? And I'm thinking maybe Paige and Stephen would be good to address this.
I'll address it, and then Stephen, you can add anything you would like. I think everyone who has worked in oil and gas knows that it's a pretty lucrative business when it's doing well, and it's not so much when it's not doing well. For me, I think that the salary and the benefits were pretty on par with, or maybe even a little bit better coming into the renewable energy space. But I think the stability was a bigger motivator for me than maybe any of the compensation packages. Knowing that the wind and solar renewable energy space is growing, and that it's going to be a big factor in the energy space for a very, very long time, and you don't have quite as many ebbs and flows as you do within the oil and gas industry. I think that was a little bit more important to me than necessarily the compensation package.
Yeah, I would say that, from my vantage point, the only thing I would add is that, some of the reasons I chose the job I'm in now was their benefits package, particularly their medical. Is half of what I was paying at Halliburton, which you would think it'd be the other way around, but it's not. So I think when you look at the various different aspects of what they offer, the division I work for in Halliburton, for the 5+ years that I worked there, we only bonused one time. And looking at the history as far as where I'm moving over to and talking to some of the people that work there that did transition over. So you got to look at everything and from an opportunity perspective. But I would say that from what I've seen, even from the technicians that we hire that do the actual repair maintenance on the actual turbines to what we would pay someone in an oil and gas manufacturing facility, they're roughly about the same. There's not a big disparity between the two industries.
Paige, Stephen, thank you very much for that. I gotta wonder if maybe that's a European versus North American difference. But while we're on this topic of changing, I have a direct message here from Sebastian to Paige. What was your biggest surprise in moving from oil and gas to renewables?
I think the biggest surprise for me was how small and kind of tight-knit the community within the space was. I'm coming from oil and gas where it's huge, it's very well ingrained within communities and that sort of thing, to this new industry where there's a lot of diversity and a lot of inclusion, and everyone knows everyone, it seems like. So coming from oil and gas where you would go to an event and not know anyone, to going to an event like a WIA and everyone knows everyone, whether it's at the same company or with other companies. I think that was probably the biggest surprise for me. And so it really made me realize like how important it was, what my image I was kind of like projecting was within the industry, because if you aren't responsive to someone, then that can kind of get through the rest of the industry. Or if you kind of come off as a very nice or bubbly or happy person, then people may want to reach out to you more. So I think projecting within the industry was a big thing that I saw.
Great, thank you for that. Back into the chat. I see a person here whose career has overlapped mine a bit. Hello, Amy. I don't know if you remember me from offshore site investigation. She's saying I have an offshore project background, and certainly there's a lot of offshore renewables nowadays. I was excited to see the paper NREL wrote about the feasibility of offshore wind in Gulf of Mexico. Does anyone see their companies looking at going in that direction?
I have to say that, the one I've seen, again, I've only been there a year, or not quite a year yet. We are having a project out on the eastern coast, and our CEO recently had a meeting with Governor Newsom in California, potentially doing some projects out there. I haven't heard anything in the Gulf of Mexico where that goes, but floating, we have quite a few over in Europe as well, and I think that's something that we're going to start seeing more of. As the technology gets to where it needs to be. And these are, they make the size of the ones that we have today look small in comparison. And so I think there will be an opportunity, but I haven't heard of anything in the Gulf of Mexico.
Thank
as far
you,
as my
Steve. Any other comments?
I think from our perspective, so I was on the operations side and less so on the development side of things. And so I can't say that we specifically have any projects that we're working on, but I know that our development team looks at all of those opportunities. And if we do feel like there's an opportunity, they're definitely going to try and chase it.
Very nice, thank you. All right, it says that some of these questions were to everyone, so you can all see them. I like this one at the bottom, very thoughtful question from Libby. For those in the renewable industry, do you feel there are equal opportunities for advancement for women and POC? We haven't heard from Madison. Have you had any sense on that?
Sorry, my cat's meowing now. You guys can probably hear her. I definitely think so. Just from the few months I've been there, I realized I didn't really introduce like what I'm doing now, but I work at EDP in corporate origination. So once the projects are under development or they are built, I kind of am on the side that helps contract like off-takers for them. So kind of basically getting them sold. And I've recently, I just went back into the office and my boss was showing me around, and I swear we have the most diverse group of people that work at EDP. And I know we're constantly hiring, and I think diversity and advancement for women is something our company is like very serious about moving forward. So I think so. Sorry.
Good, that's great, thanks. Anyone else on the panel care to chime in?
Oh.
I'll second what she said, especially, and not to rag on the oil and gas industry, but especially compared to the oil and gas industry, I definitely feel like there's a lot of opportunity, specifically for women, obviously people of color as well, but I definitely feel like there's more opportunity for women within this industry.
Great, thanks. Can I add my own 2 cents to this? When I was in the oil and gas business as a geophysicist, I was on the board of an LGBT promotional group within this major international oil company. Is it safe to say that in renewables, there's good support for those various groups? Anyone?
Yeah, I think I only answer that probably by, we just wouldn't say just developed or kicked off, but have diversity inclusion, program, and looking at the various different ways that we can embrace that as far as, culturally or things like that as well. But I would say, yes, I think it's more open than what oil and gas would be. I think the environment and atmosphere is much different and from a kind of a work perspective. I'd echo what Madison and both Paige said as far as, women go. I would say that there's far more than where I came from. As far as, women, even in supervisory or manager roles, I'd say that's the case as well.
Very helpful, thank you. All right, we have a question from Matt Nickel, who is a hiring manager. So he asks, I know what it's like to wade through hundreds of resumes looking for interview candidates. What makes a difference is if someone on the inside makes a recommendation for a specific candidate. How do you recommend getting those contacts within companies to advocate for you, especially if you are not currently in the industry?
Oh, I can definitely speak to that one. I think networking is so crucial to finding jobs, as horrible as that sounds. Like you mentioned, I'm sure, recruiters look through hundreds of resumes a day. You really have to do something that makes yourself stand out. So I think a big thing for me was kind of putting myself out there in these groups and organizations that are around renewable energy. So not just HREG, but there are a ton of different groups that you can be a part of in the greater Houston area, if not like across the whole world. And then I think just volunteering your time there, building up connections, asking people what they do. If you're super interested in where they work, maybe you could job shadow, or I think just mainly kind of making yourself known and then building those connections. And I think everyone would, I couldn't meet anybody that wouldn't stick their neck out for you if their companies were hiring. So I think definitely just talk to as many people as you can, let everyone know, hey, I love renewable energy and I want to work here. And then I think it'll happen.
I'll add to that. There are several groups here in Houston. Rise is, you guys probably aware of if you're within that, or Real Houston has finally launched. It's been a project for the past year or so with Mike Skelly and a few other people. And there are events going on right now, all virtual. There hasn't been any happy hours, stuff like that. But once we do get those off the ground, I'll definitely share it with the team and, make sure that you guys get at least some sort of visual on those. But yeah, those are two great organizations here in Houston that you can plug and play with and start growing that network base. And then maybe even connecting with people on LinkedIn, like Madison said. If you guys have like interests, something like that, maybe you start talking about it. Grab a coffee, of course, socially distanced coffee or lunch, and go from there.
Good, thanks. Somebody sent me a general question with an exclamation mark. This is from Sivas Brahmanagian. Hello, Jim. I have a general question. As a fresh graduate out of college with relevant internships related to solar, how can we connect with and pitch ourselves to initiate a conversation with industry professionals? And sorry, you can address me as Siva, she put. I just saw that. All right, so the question is, fresh out of college, how do you connect with the right people and pitch your worth?
It goes back to the networking aspect of that, and then also LinkedIn. So there's keyword searches you can put in as well. So whatever her internship was it operations, was it finance, was it development, land, real estate? And she can start putting in he or she can start putting those keywords in, put in Houston, and then find people that work in the industry currently here in Houston, connect with them, share the story. Like I said, maybe grab a coffee, just be open and go from there. I mean, they might not be the right person at that point, but they can also introduce you to somebody else.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Something I also figured out a little late in the game is that there's definitely an algorithm with LinkedIn. So if you don't have over, say, 50 followers or 50 connections, it's a lot harder for you to be brought up whenever people are searching. Another thing with resumes that I realized a little late in the game is a lot, like if you're applying for jobs online, a lot of the time they'll have systems that kind of sort through the resumes based on certain keywords that they can find in the job description. So if you have this great resume, but you're applying for a job that's a little different than what your resume is tailored to, it might not even like get through to the actual recruiter. So a huge thing I found, because I've been helping my friends look for jobs as well, is that we look for the position that they're applying for, some keywords that match what they've done in previous roles, and we make sure to include them in there. And I think it definitely increases your chances of being pulled. That's a little off topic, but just FYI.
No, thank you, Madison.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Whenever, from the recruitment aspect, whenever your recruiters are doing searches on LinkedIn, the more you have those words, the higher up in those profile searches you'll appear. And so it's very important, whatever you're looking for development, again, just make sure that you add those words in there. You know, take time, like Madison said, in your resumes, add relevant experience, transferable skills. So when they're reading through it, they can see, they can actually go to bat for you. You want to have recruiters that can actually sit there and look at your resume and take it to their boss and say, hey, look, not the perfect fit, but they've done A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I think I'd echo that. You know, I think that's one of the things that, you know, my hiring manager was looking for was somebody who had logistics supply chain background, and not necessarily someone who came up in the ranks of the, you know, renewable energy. So a lot of employers are looking for folks that have a background in something and how they can apply that, because the industry is really new. Whereas a lot of the concepts around supply chain, logistics, and things like that, they're old, or they've been around for quite some time, and you can apply those two things. So people are looking for those and rather hire someone who has experience than trying to find someone who doesn't and trying to fit them into a role. So I would just definitely, the things that you know, I would definitely look at that, how they relate to the job description.
Yeah, and I'll echo exactly what Steven said. I'm in supply chain as well, and those were my skills that were transferable over to the role that I'm currently in. And I know for a fact that any job that you're going to get, the relevant information that you need to do that job, as long as you have the background in doing that you're going to get that knowledge on the job. There's a lot to be said for on-the-job training. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. In fact, here's another question that directly comes to that topic. Somewhat covered already, but I'll just read it from Farish. Thank you for doing this. Question for Paige, and this would also apply to Stephen. What sorts of supply chain opportunities, there it is, supply chain, do you most frequently see? I'm a supply planner for an oil and gas company and have been looking at companies like Pattern and EDP in Houston, but have been struggling to find opportunities that my skills can easily transfer to. So I gotta ask, any tips on relating current skills in supply chain from oil and gas to renewables? Paige, Stephen, you can fight it out to go first.
I guess I can go first. I think that specifically in supply chain and sourcing, a lot of it is specifically around like contract negotiations, being able to do a lot of cost analysis, sorts of skills like that aren't necessarily just for oil and gas or just for petrochem. It's skills, your communication skills, being able to like deliver a message correctly. A lot of those are skills that sometimes are like overlooked on maybe a resume, but are very, very important in what we do on a day-to-day basis, specifically in supply chain. I know, Stephen, you can add probably a lot to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, there's, you know, if you're currently a planner in that role, I mean, there's various different things from a site planner, which we actually have at some of our sites, but also the logistics and supply chain that they need. You know, companies that have category management, and we have that through our procurement organization kind of as well. But I would look at some of the skills that, you know, that our planner has, like kind of Paige talked about, as far as being able to analyze numbers and being able to take a look at inventory. Do we have enough with orders that are coming in, and planning that, and just utilizing the things that you do on a daily basis that you may take for granted, and using those things and how they would apply to a job that may be an analyst type position, or maybe someone, we do a lot of construction, so we've got a lot of project management. a lot of our things, we do have a lot in Houston, but a lot of it's also, are you willing to relocate as well? And so some of these, the various different sites that are kind of out there. So I would say just, look at the things that you do, the core competencies around a planner, and then what are some of the things that they apply to within a job description as far as those things go. And I can be able to help with that as well.
Great, thank you both. Here's a question addressed to Brian, but it's in the everyone section, so I hope you all can see it. Brian, I think you mentioned there being renewable recruiting companies and headhunters during your intro. Can you share the name of some of these renewable recruitment companies or recruiters? And Brian, sorry, did you actually respond to this further down the chain? Yes, I see
that. So it's in there.
Piper
If they want
Maddox
direct
mentioned.
contact information or individuals, I can share that individually if they send me an email.
Great, thank you. Scrolling through the chat here to ones we haven't hit on yet. All right, from Tracy. Again, we've hit this one sideways, but I'll put it directly out there. Can you share the skills you felt were most transferable from oil and gas, and how so? It's very important for folks trying to transfer to be able to connect the dots and clearly articulate for prospective employers. So I don't want to pick on Paige and Stephen all the time. They most directly came from oil and gas, but I think Gage or Madison can answer this. It's very important for folks to transfer, to articulate the actual skills. What do you think?
So I guess kind of to add on to what Stephen was just saying about like if your skills would transfer. So if you think about it, with my company, EDPR, who's a developer and owner of wind and solar, we have so many different departments. So we have an HR department, we have a construction team, we have a development department, we have operations and management, asset management, what I do, origination, which I had never actually even heard of before I started the position. So I think that there are a lot of different ways that your skills will transfer. I think it's about just being able to adapt and willing to learn, because, if this is a brand new industry, you're probably not going to know what what transmission lines are what, or what ISOs are, RTOs, and it's a lot to learn. But I think just the willingness to be able to pick up and just run with it, I think that's a huge skill.
That's great. Appreciate it. Somebody wrote here a question, Esteban. It's a brief one, but it could end to a long discussion. I don't know. I'd like to hear comments from the panelists about Tesla coming to Austin, and in particular, Tesla's solar roof. Thank you.
I'll take that one.
There's a competitor for you, Gage.
Well, no, yeah, you're right. But what I can tell you is, Tesla is a car manufacturer, right? They make batteries for cars, and that's really what they're known for. There are plenty of studies and plenty of links and information out there, on the web. I'm more than happy to share some of that data with other people. Tesla is not only, are they not a solar company, they actually bought the solar technology from a company called Solar City. So the panels and everything that comes along from the solar side of their business is something that they purchased, not from Elon Musk's mind. The roof tiles, on the other hand, are a Tesla product. But if you look at that, they're actually, now they're refunding people's money for roof tiles. If you're not within a 50-mile radius of their warehouse. They're also kind of spinning off away from that business just because it didn't do what he was hoping. And so, from my standpoint, from when I'm talking to homeowners that are looking at Tesla, if somebody is looking at solar because of cost, then Tesla is the way to go. Tesla is basically buying the marketplace from that standpoint. But what you're going to get from Tesla is a tiered system, not really designed specifically to your home. And good luck with the customer service side of it. So from that standpoint, listen, I'm super excited that they're, building their facility in Austin and doing what they're doing. But from a renewable energy standpoint of it, people buy Tesla solar because they own Tesla products and they think they're getting the exact same thing in a car that they're getting in their roof, and it is couldn't be further from the truth. So to piggyback also on that, make sure you do some research and just kind of see what's out there. Look at reviews and things of that nature around Tesla and the solar, and you will find that probably 90% of the Tesla roof or Tesla solar customers are completely unhappy with how everything has turned out. So there's my 2 cents on Tesla.
All right, you're a formidable competitor. And that Gigafactory in Austin, from what I've read, is primarily focused on building Cybertruck and batteries, and the solar supplies coming out of their Gigafactory Buffalo. Anybody else have a view towards this? Great, well, thank you. I'm just scanning through the questions now in the chat panel. Let me go to the very top because oh, here's another wide open question that could lead to some serious, if you haven't had enough politics lately, here's a question from April. Do you anticipate the election of Biden, Vice President Biden, will have a significant effect on the renewables industry in the US? So is that a positive, a negative, or a neutral?
I'll let the others try and chime in first before I give my opinion.
All right, well, we'll look forward to hearing from you too. Anyone else want to say a word or two?
All I know about it, because I am still pretty new and not that heavily invested in the politics side of it, but I do know definitely it's a good outcome that Biden won. I know there like a bunch of tax credits and stuff on solar, and I think that he just has a vision that's pro renewable energy. So I definitely think that there will be growth in the coming 4 years. I don't want to botch anything, so I'll let you guys take it.
I'll take a very political approach to this one. So yes, it's going to be great for clean energy because you put someone in the White House that is pro clean energy and understands what's going on right now. The con side of that is people who are opposed to renewable energy or kind of sit on the fence about it. Having someone force it down their throats are not going to make them accept it anymore. I.e., if anyone wants to look at my Facebook feed, they're more than welcome to, and they'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to help us or give us a champion that believes in it and that can help us push it forward even further. I mean, we've already seen an uptake on my side of the business on land acquisition and stuff like that, a positive feeling.
Good. Maybe.
Yeah, so I'll agree with with what both of them said. The challenge that you run into with anything is you want to focus on the here and the now. So from a tax credit perspective, right, until the end of December, it's 26%, and then it drops down to 22% for residential consumer for putting solar on your house. It is a tax credit. It's not a guarantee. One thing that I was kind of impressed with, just with current administration and whatnot, and then it kind of backfired. There is an act that's going through Congress, sitting in Congress, and it passed the House already, and it's called the Green Act. And what that is it's the ability for residential homeowners that are looking to put solar on their homes. It would bump that tax credit that's currently at 26% to 30% and extend it for 5 years. The challenge that a lot of people run into when you're putting solar on your home is, it's like I said, it's a credit. It's not a rebate. You're not guaranteed. So what happens in that instance is when you're talking to somebody that's retired on a fixed income, a student, even a business owner for that matter, a business owner is trying to pay as little tax as possible. So if you don't have any taxable income, you're not really guaranteed that credit. But what the Green Act would actually do is it would allow homeowners, individuals, to get 85% of the 30% in a rebate. So I'm curious personally to see what's going to happen with that. and see where it kind of moves in the future. I'm a big believer in, you know, a politician is a politician, a businessman's a businessman. But I also believe science is more important than, you know, listening to somebody say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because if there's a better way, there's a better way. So I am hopeful that with him becoming president, that he puts his money where his mouth is behind the renewable energy space. And we all see, you know, great changes in that aspect to where not only does it help individual homeowners, but it also helps everybody looking for, you know, getting into that renewable energy space as an employment.
And I think something important to note as well, so the renewable energy industry isn't going anywhere, regardless of if we have a Republican or a Democrat as our president. It is definitely an industry that will continue to grow. My company, throughout, you know, COVID, this pandemic, the uncertainty of the election, so many things that 2020 has thrown at us, they're continuing to hire and bring on people because they know just this is an industry of the future. So that's encouraging.
All right. Well, I think we heard from 4 of the panelists. Paige, you want to chime in too, or are we good?
I think that it's beneficial for the industry that he was elected. Just, I don't have much more to say than that on the political side of things.
We'll take it. Thank you. Here's kind of a related question. It doesn't mention politics, but Troy sent a question to everyone. What do you think the general outlook is for jobs in this industry? And what I'm sensing already from the discussion is favorable, but I'll push on. It seems like it is a growth industry. Are you having a hard time filling positions / finding qualified candidates? There has been a struggle to find technical employees in the refining and petrochemical industries. A lot has been invested in workforce development initiatives to get kids more interested in those careers. How do you think the supply and demand of workers for this industry right now and near future?
I can start off, I think, with a couple of different things. We're working with, there's several colleges in the Midwest and across the U.S. that have, you know, technical degrees in wind to where you can work on turbines and things like that, you know, have a certificate. We're working with those to hire. It's getting harder to hire individuals that have experience because not just because of the competition. I saw somewhere in the chat, is it growing, you know, in areas like Colorado and places like that? We're looking at developing, not necessarily all 50 states, but just in my region, we're going to, in 5 years, we're going to double my capacity, the number of sites and the number of people, the number of things like that as well. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to do that. I think that the key thing here is just really looking at how, you know, we can get different programs. We as one of them, but also National Kid Wind Day that, you know, help, you know, get people, you know, educated about it as far as some of the things that we do. My kids, when they ask me, you know, what it is that I, you know, that I do, you know, do I climb these turbines? Do I do this? And having to explain to them what it is that I do, you know, they kind of had kind of no idea. So I think it's new to a lot of people, and I think there's some definitely careers that are out there, in, you know, looking at the ways that they can get into the wind industry.
I would echo that statement. You know, our company is, even though, again, we're on the consumer residential side, is growing exponentially. So, you know, anywhere from salespeople to call center people to door knockers to installers, even from, if you're an electrician, right? We need electricians that do all the wiring. So, you know, if you've got those skills, you can absolutely find a job within a new career, if you will, in the renewable energy, because it's just growing exponentially.
And Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, kind of carry on all this. You know what Steven's talking about with AWE and what they're doing with kids. I mean, Lego has a wind turbine set now, and I think that the growing future of renewables is dependent on that. And additionally, there's transferable skills all over the place. We're just now looking at offshore wind here in the US. I mean, EDPR and EDF are actively developing these projects on the East Coast. Here in Houston, we have probably the leading offshore engineering subsea experts. So that talent pool can be pulled from here, and it's a relatively easy transition. I placed a few of them when I was working in recruitment from those companies to engineering companies who are doing FEED studies for those projects. And they're still in those roles today. So I mean, they're out there. Not just thinking about it's colleges like Texas Tech who are offering wind engineering programs or wind tech programs as well, and having them kind of champion behind us.
All right, thank you for that.
Okay, my child is going to just die because I'm asking this question right now. What? But I know she is.
Do what?
No, but wind energy and the big electric companies and the solar panels on our houses. And my whole thing is, how do you convince people that that's the way to go? And how do I convince myself or my friend that that's how we need to go? What do we do?
Call me. Call me.
Yeah, Gage, take this away.
Yeah, so what I can tell you from that standpoint is you really need to sit down and ask yourself, what is your why? And everybody's why is different. My why I put solar panels on my house was to screw the electric company. And then in the end, right, now that I'm doing this and I've talked about it for 3 years since the panels have been on my house, I'm starting to see the benefit of it. Some of the things that I encourage people to do is, if you have Disney Plus, watch 2 documentaries. They're about an hour each, very eye-opening. One is called Paris to Pittsburgh, which, if you follow politics, you'll see that Trump pulled out of Paris to Pittsburgh, and Biden is already talking about getting back into it. The other one is called Before the Flood. And both of them are science-based. Before the Flood is very science-based on what we as individuals are doing to the planet, from just, continuing to burn fossil fuels and, global warming and climate change. And, everybody has their own opinions on it. But this is where what I said earlier, where I firmly believe a scientist over a politician any day. And science is telling us that we can reduce global warming. Not only can we stop it, but we can actually turn it around. And so, solar ice caps are melting, and, all this other stuff actually can be reversed. So you really need to ask yourself, what is your why, and why are you looking to do it? When I meet with homeowners, it's either to save money, right, to save the planet, to do my part to offset my carbon footprint, right? There's all those things that come into play. Another thing that people think about when they put solar on their house is, well, what happens when the panels don't work anymore? Well, if you think about it, right, the International Space Station is powered by solar. There's not electricity on the International Space Station. It's powered by solar. So when you look at all of those things, solar panels have been around for forever. The panel itself is, if you go with a good quality panel, is going to outlast all of us. It may not perform at the rate that it's performing when it's first put on your roof, but it will still perform and still generate that electricity. So that's, from my standpoint, to answer your question, the question that you ask yourself is, what is my why? Like I said earlier, I saved over $86,000 by putting solar panels on my roof. That's what my offset was for my electric bill. So, I don't know if you can use 86 grand. I don't know what your offset would be, but that's a big selling point in and of itself, is just being able to fire the electric company and power your house based on solar panels on your roof.
All right, Gage, that's great. You have a lot of enthusiasm for the topic. I get that. Hey, here's a topic that really hasn't come up much tonight, and that is COVID-19. I'm going to throw this out to our 5 panelists and ask what has changed in your company and in the industry, as far as you can see, with the COVID-19 and the shutdowns. Has it made things more difficult? What's the situation in your office? Offices are opening, is yours? So just whoever of the panelists cares to jump on that, that'd be great.
I'll go first. So from our perspective, with everybody working from home, you're using more electricity, right? So now that you're using more electricity, you're looking at your electric bill. So our business is actually, the solar industry is actually booming because of COVID. So benefit for us, downside for everybody else. But, you know, that's how it's changed for us. And then moving a lot of stuff like everybody else to virtual appointments. So, you know, you have the ability to have a conversation with somebody either virtually or in person, you know, masked up. But people take a look from our perspective, they're looking at how much electricity that they're using.
Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. I know for me, it's been a little strange. Personally, I started in May, so I started completely remote. We actually were thinking about pushing my start date back to June because we wanted it to be in person. We thought COVID would be done by June. So it's definitely been a bit of a learning curve. I completely onboarded 100% remote, and we were supposed to go back to the office in October. Things changed. Now we're not even going back till 2021. But I think it's all about adapting. Like we use a lot of online platforms, and it's not as bad as you would think it is. So if you're looking to start a job and you're afraid to transfer or change right now during COVID, coming from someone who's starting in an industry that I have no idea about, you can do it. It's totally attainable.
So I work in supply chain, and as everybody probably knows, supply chains had a lot of disruption during the COVID time period. A lot of plants in China were completely shut down for however long, months, weeks. So supply chains definitely became longer. We're still seeing effects of that throughout the industry, being able to get parts and components to keep the turbines up and running. Lead times are longer. Transportation costs have at least doubled in some cases. So it has definitely impacted from a supply chain perspective. I think from a work perspective, my job deals with the sites and with suppliers most of the time. So everything I was doing is pretty much par for the course in what I am doing on a day-to-day basis. I think I miss more the like face-to-face interactions with people. And so that's definitely been an adjustment, but I will agree with Madison. So I wasn't onboarded virtually, but I had an intern virtually, and I am currently onboarding a new employee. So definitely recognize the challenge of onboarding somebody virtually, but it's definitely doable, and we're adapting and we're making it work, and we're still hiring. And if you're willing to and you want to make the transition into renewables, they will, if you're working for the right company, they will definitely make it the best experience we can in these times.
Yeah, I'd echo what Paige said. I think that the downside is really the networking, and then who do you contact, who do you reach out to if you have this problem, that problem, you don't know. And so you spend a lot of time, more time in meetings than probably you really need to try to get some things done. I think that's kind of one downside to it, but you know, COVID overall hasn't impacted our business. You know, we're an essential business, and so while even states are locked down, one of the, you know, had to figure out how do we keep people to make sure that the windmills still operate and that we're still generating electricity, because, you know, I won't get into all the details, but if we stop generating electricity, it actually causes a negative effect on the grid and can have, you know, more brownouts, more issues and things like that as well. So it makes a big deal. So making sure that, you know, we've got people that can, you know, that can work whenever we have, you know, sites that flare up and things like that as well. So it's made it very difficult, but onboarding has not been impossible. You know, I've hired people directly without meeting them, and at the same time, you know, meeting with them, you know, virtually is just something that I've had to get used to. But I'm much more of the old-fashioned face-to-face. But you learn to adapt and overcome.
Thank you, Stephen. And Brian, care to chime in?
I think if you're looking from a talent aspect, COVID has been a blessing to a lot of people. And that's because a lot of companies have thought that they had to have people in offices, which means that if you didn't live in the same city as these offices, you were automatically discounted as a candidate, or they would require you to relocate. But because of COVID, and we've all learned mostly how to work remotely, it's opened up talent pools across state lines, across the country for people to fill roles and not be bound by an office or a city. So with that, it's a blessing that you guys can actually look out and potentially get roles in New York or North Carolina or Oregon. The downfall of that is now that you're not just opening up roles to a certain area, you are now competing with people across the country. So it's a give and take, but I've seen a lot of people, my friends who are still in recruitment, more flexibility in those roles whenever they're hiring.
Thank you. Interesting perspective. Somebody threw a question to me, Matt, a direct message question. Which companies in the Houston area are working on utility scale solar? How about community solar? If any of our panelists have an opinion on that, love to hear it. Utility or community scale?
Wouldn't that be you guys, Jim?
You know, we don't.
You guys are utility scale. Community, is Rachel on here? No, Rachel works for a community solar developer. There are a few. I would have to Google the community side, but I mean, EP for sure. PDF pattern.
Wouldn't that also be like Solarize Houston, Jim?
Solarize Houston?
Yeah. Solarize
Yeah.
Houston?
Yeah, they now have reformed as SUN, Solar United Neighborhoods.
Right.
And they are doing some not utility, but some community solar. I'm not all that familiar with it. I wish Dory Wolf was in this call because she's a real champion of that. All right. Trying to think what other, anybody, I think I've covered most of the questions in the chat, maybe not 100%. Scanning. Arena wrote to me, any suggestion how to volunteer or to build connections during pandemic? Is there a role for that with any of these employers?
Well, FYI, HREG, we have a volunteer role that we need some help with, and it's for the career fair that we're putting on. So that's definitely a great way to jump in. Basically what the role is you'd be contacting a bunch of industries in the renewable energy industry, trying to build connections and see if it's something they'd want to attend. So it's definitely a foot in the door. I mean, if you're trying to apply at these places and you're already talking to HR, saying that you're volunteering with a nonprofit in renewable energy, and that looks really good. I also posted a link in the chat. It's kind of high up, so let me copy and paste it again. But it's the earthdayhouston.org website, and they post a lot of organizations that attend Earth Day, and I know a lot of them are, you know, sustainable or like in the water conservation industry. So possibly taking a look at this list. Yeah, and I think just reaching out via email, via Teams, and asking, is there anything you can be a part of?
Thank you, Madison. Here's a question to me directly from Julie. In your opinion, do you think higher education or a certificate program will help someone transition to renewables, or are transferable skill sets enough? There's so many renewable energy certificate programs right now. Anyone in the panel have experience with that topic, renewable energy certificate programs versus higher education degrees in renewables?
It would depend on the role that they're going for, in all honesty, and it depends on where they're getting that certificate from. I would say if it's an operations aspect, you know, Steve will know more. Asset management, stuff like that might need it or may not. But from what I've seen, a certificate hasn't done anything extraordinary for candidates on the hiring side.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents for it. Now, supply chain, all that might be important.
I'm never going to say that furthering your education is not beneficial. But from everything that I've seen, transferable jobs, on-the-job training gets you exponentially further than certificate programs. But that's just my personal experience.
Within that, I don't know if you guys, if you don't have LinkedIn Premium, do it. It's worth the money. There's LinkedIn Learning, which would also be certificates and programs. There's actually 6 similar programs out there. GIS programs for land people, where you can learn ArcGIS and stuff like that, which are easy, and it's part of your membership, so it doesn't really, or your monthly premium, so you don't have to go out, and they're self-paced.
Very nice, thanks. I see a post from Bill Swan stating that ENGIE did a solar farm in Alpine, Texas for City of Houston. So there's one company that's doing utility scale. I think I've pretty much caught up on the questions. If I missed a question, could you maybe resend it so it gets to the end of the list? I'll be sure to jump on it. I see lots of comments in here, people saying thank you to the panelists. That's so nice. These people have contributed a night of their time and they're shared their expertise. And I get the sense there's a camaraderie amongst the employees and employers in renewable energy.
I have a cool quote that I heard the other day while I was sitting in a Future of Renewables presentation with EDPR, and it's from Elon Musk, and it really stood out to me. It kind of goes to answer Amy's question earlier of why solar, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It's from Elon Musk, and it says, let's say if the only thing we had was solar energy, if you took a small section of Spain, you could power all of Europe. A little corner of Nevada or Utah would power all of the United States. And we'd only need to cover a land area about the size of Spain to power the entire Earth renewably in 2030. So I think that it's crazy how little we would need, like little space we would need to do solar, and I don't know, and not have negative, or yeah, sorry, that's all.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, we didn't really get into it, but there's one area that it has not been tapped into very good at all, but it's battery storage, and around developing that. And so a lot of companies are working on it, and there's a means to do it, but it's not very efficient. And so with solar, when everybody's normally not at home, obviously, the consumption at night, it basically goes up. And so I saw there was a chemist, I'm not sure if that would relate or not, but engineering and things like that. But there's going to be a large development or a large influx around battery storage in the next probably 3 to 5 years, from what I've seen and the development that we're doing within our company.
So Stephen, that was my exact question over to Jim, was how are you guys storing the power that you're generating?
So we got our first site that we're doing with battery storage, but most of the time it's just like your house. It's being taken by an off-taker, whether it be a company, whether it be a utility, or whether it be a ISO type region. But right with my first project in my region will be going live in 2021. It's kind of one of those things a little bit iffy, maybe 2022. And so I don't have a whole lot on that, but I know that our first site, it's Indiana Crossroads in Indiana, just outside of Lafayette, that will have battery storage.
Great, great. I am the owner of a battery backup system connected to my rooftop solar panels. Been very happy with it. It's very dependable, silent, solid state. But it's not really a panel session about the technology. It's really about pivoting. And I don't know if we have any battery employers in the area, battery manufacturers. We mentioned Tesla in Austin is going to be doing the Cybertruck and batteries. And who knows what else they'll throw in there. We're getting near the end of our allotted time here. Julie and I would like to open it up to see if there are any comments or questions out there that we haven't gotten to.
Mike, I think you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I'll make an introduction, guys. My name's Mike. I grew up in the Houston area, close out a little bit in Cypress, so just right outside of town there. Went to Texas A&M. Popped into a few meetings over the years. I think I've met Brian a few years back. I don't know if you remember. Bill Swan, met him as well. But I currently work for Blattner. I'm a project engineer for them. I'm sure some of the folks with Pattern and EDP probably familiar with the name. We are a utility scale contractor. Haven't had the chance to make it to the meetings over the years. I travel. I'm basically full-time on site. I'm actually currently in Kirksville, Missouri. We're building a wind farm right now for Terrigen. But I did want to make an introduction, open myself up, just kind of say hi to everybody. I look forward to meeting a lot of folks in the Houston area who do renewables. It's cool to see this many people hop on a call. I'll post my LinkedIn here too. Like I said, I'm on the construction side of it. My background's in mechanical engineering. So I don't think we have any construction professionals on, or maybe no one else that was on the panel at least. I know we heard from kind of development all the way to operations. I don't, if there's anything I can answer about construction, more than happy to. I'm more than happy to just continue to network, and cool to see a lot of these events, especially for someone that travels. This is actually, regardless of COVID, this has kind of worked out for me to kind of get to hear some different things from some other people in the industry in Houston. So thank you to everybody. And like I said, just wanted to make an introduction. So thank you to everybody, and look forward to continuing to connect.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'll just echo that it is amazing that we had this many participants, and it just talks to how many people are actively engaging in this space and wanting to pivot into renewable energy. So thank you everyone for your participation and great questions.
If I could make a plain pitch right here for HREG. If you want to stay in touch with HREG, follow us on LinkedIn and other social media. Look to our website, Houston Renewable Energy Group, full, not HREG.org. Sign up for the newsletter, and we hope to see more of these faces and others in the future.
Yes, and just a quick plug to thank you, Jim, as well. I know you have been a valued board member for quite a while now, over a year, and you will be rolling off of our board. And I think you were supposed to phase out in November, so I appreciate you sticking around a little bit longer and helping me put on the event tonight.
Thank you for that.
All right, well, if there are no other questions, we will give you a few minutes back. Thank you again to all of our panelists. We really appreciate all of your insight, and there's just so much to absorb information-wise in this space, and education is key. So we really appreciate your personal perspectives in this space.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Cheers.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.